Hello, welcome to Thor Talk, the show all about Marvel's resident god of thunder, where I discuss Thor feats, battles, story arcs, villains, and more. This episode of Thor Talk was voted for on Thor Talk's Instagram account, where followers decided if they wanted the latest installment of Worthiness Month to be about Loki or Thunderstrike. Thunderstrike managed to win by 2 points, so this episode is all about Eric Masterson, the first Thunderstrike. Plus, Magneto gives respect to Thor. Welcome to Thor Talk.
I am Thor the Thunderer, son of Odin, prince of Asgard. I am an Avenger, and this world is under my protection.
Whosoever holds this hammer, if he be worthy, shall possess the power of Thor. Whosoever holds this hammer, if he be worthy, shall possess the power of Thor.
Eric Masterson first appeared in Thor number 391, which was published in May of 1988 and was written by Tom DeFalco. In Thor 391, he met Thor, who had taken on the identity of a construction worker named Sigurd Jarlsson. Thor, as Sigurd, had taken a job in which Eric Masterson was the architect. But then the villain known as Mongoose attacks Sigurd, so he becomes Thor and helps Spider-Man in a fight with Mongoose. During the fight, Mongoose knocks some graders loose and Eric pushes a worker out of the way, but winds up crushed under them himself. Thor takes Eric to a hospital. He survived, but was now on crutches and crippled for life. Thor later finds out that Eric is fighting for custody of his son, named Kevin, with his ex-wife. Later, Mongoose tracks down Eric Masterson and kidnaps him to draw Thor out. Thor finds Eric, but then he finds out that Eric's kidnappers simply wanted to grab his attention. They did this so that Thor could save Hercules and the High Evolutionary from the Black Galaxy. Eric actually accompanies Thor in a spacesuit, and the two eventually return to Earth with Hercules. When they arrive, they are immediately attacked by Mongoose. During the fight, Thor is knocked back and drops Mjolnir. Eric jumps on Mongoose and demands that he leave Thor alone, but Eric is knocked aside. But as Mongoose approaches, Eric grabs Mjolnir and charges Mongoose. But Mongoose blasts Eric before he can use the hammer. Mongoose then flees as Eric lies dying. Thor pleads with Odin to save Eric's life. Odin does so by merging Thor and Eric. Now, when Thor strikes his hammer on the ground, he becomes Eric Masterson, and when Eric Masterson strikes his cane on the ground, he becomes Thor. This is similar to Donald Blake, but unlike Donald Blake, both have separate memories and personalities. So Eric is still fully Eric, and Thor is still fully Thor. However, being merged with Thor does cause several problems for Eric, as he is having trouble juggling his personal life and Thor's superhero life. Eventually, Eric realizes that he has to give up custody of his son Kevin, because it's what's best for him. Later, Thor and Eric are temporarily split by a Celestial's blast, but they are later forced to merge once again in a fight with Surtur and Ymir. Later, Loki kidnaps Kevin to draw out Thor. As Thor battles Ulik the Troll in order to get to Kevin, Loki drains the mystic energy from the Wrecking Crew. Draining power from the Wrecking Crew causes Loki to become extremely powerful. As Thor defeats Ulik and reaches Loki, he manages to take Kevin to the police unit known as Code Blue. With Kevin safe, Thor and Loki battle it out. The two gods go back and forth as Loki uses his newfound power to freeze, blast, and light Thor aflame. Eventually, Thor has had enough as he beats Loki into the ground and is about to kill him. Loki screams for Thor to do it, but then he regains his senses and says that he cannot kill Loki. Loki says that he always knew that Thor could not kill him, but he must live with the deaths of his loved ones, as he fires a bolt of energy at Kevin and Eric's ex-wife. Susan sacrifices herself by jumping in the way of the bolt to stop it from killing them. Thor realizes what must be done, so he kills Loki. Thor is banished for doing this, but before he is banished, he begs for Earth to be protected and for Eric Masterson to be spared. Both of these happen at the same time, as Thor is banished to an unknown location, and Eric becomes the next Thor, protector of Earth. Eric Masterson was neither as powerful or as experienced as Thor, but he did succeed in becoming a major player in the Marvel Universe. Eric Masterson was the Thor in Operation Galactic Storm, the Infinity Gauntlet storyline, and the Thor Corps. As he went on his various adventures, Eric always sought after Thor Odinson. He eventually finds him hidden in Eric's own subconscious. He frees Thor, but then Thor asks Eric to keep Mjolnir and remain the protector of Earth while he stays on Asgard to marry Sif. However, the Enchantress puts a spell on Eric that causes him to fall deeply in love with Sif. Eric then goes to Asgard so that he can kill Thor and Sif can be his. Thor tries to avoid a fight and reason with Eric, but then Eric accidentally strikes Sif, which causes Thor to fight back. Meanwhile, Odin and Eitri the dwarf are forging a new weapon made of Uru, the same material Mjolnir is made of. Meanwhile, as Eric throws Mjolnir at Thor, Thor catches it, revealing that as the true master of Mjolnir, he can regain control of it from any worthy wielder. Eric throws a tree at Thor, which Thor easily shatters, and Eric lunges at Thor as the two continue their battle. Eventually both are knocked down on the ground, and Sif runs to Thor instead of Eric. Seeing this, Eric overcomes the Enchantress' spell, and the fight is ended. Thor returns Eric to Midgard, revealing that he does not hold Eric responsible, as he found out that the Enchantress bewitched him. Thor leaves Eric with a gift from Odin, a gnarled walking stick. As Thor leaves, Eric wonders for a second if the walking stick is similar to Mjolnir, so he strikes it down on the ground, and it becomes an enchanted mace named Thunderstrike, with the inscription, "The world still needs heroes." In Thunderstrike number 1, Eric begins using his mace in his superhero career, but he decides that he does not like being called Thor, as he is not the real Thor. Later in that issue, he gets into a fight with the violent vigilante known as Blood Axe, who wields the enchanted axe that is also called Blood Axe. This axe was once used by Thor's enemy Scourge the Executioner. The Blood Axe is an evil weapon that craves blood and corrupts those who use it. After this, he has a new costume made and defeats Blood Axe in a rematch. As he leaves, a cop calls him Thor, but he corrects him, saying that his name is, Thunderstrike. He takes the axe from Blood Axe and eventually uses it to defeat the Juggernaut. Thunderstrike also constantly trained under Captain America, and he even trusted Captain America with his secret identity. Eventually, Blood Axe reclaims the axe from Eric, and the vigilante warns Eric that the Egyptian god of death, Seth, has returned. The two temporarily team up to fight Mongoose and Quicksand, but when Blood Axe tries to kill Quicksand, Thunderstrike then turns on his rival and manages to separate Blood Axe from the axe for 60 seconds, which causes Blood Axe to revert to a mortal form. In reality, Blood Axe is none other than Eric's girlfriend, Jackie Lucas. As Jackie is taken away, the Blood Axe is left behind, and Eric decides that the only way to defeat Seth is to use the Blood Axe. Eric picks it up, and thus the power of Blood Axe and Thunderstrike are combined. Eric confronts Seth and actually defeats him, but the Blood Axe has fully corrupted him, as it is an evil weapon. As the Avengers arrive, Eric begins to tear them apart with his newfound power, but as all seems lost, Thor arrives. Eric begs Thor to stop him if he can, but as the two begin to level the ground itself in a fight, Thor realizes that the only way that he can defeat Eric is to kill him. Eric realizes that he cannot control himself, so he turns the power of Thunderstrike against the power of Blood Axe, but in doing so, he dies. Eric's soul awakes at the gates of Valhalla, the Asgardian paradise for the dead. Thor meets him there and tells him that his rightful reward is Valhalla, but Eric says that it isn't right for him to go there. He doesn't view himself as Thunderstrike or Thor, but as Eric Masterson. Odin then takes Eric to a mortal resting place, and before he leaves, Eric reminds Thor that the world still needs heroes. Thor chooses to honor his friend by using his lightning to carve out on Eric's gravestone, "The world still needs heroes." Eric Masterson was a very close friend of Thor, and was an integral part of the Tom DeFalco run, but despite this, he hasn't officially been resurrected. Eric would temporarily be resurrected as a minion of the Grim Reaper, but he was quickly brought back to the realm of the dead. His last words to Thor before returning to the afterlife was to check on his son, Kevin. Years later, Kevin inherited Eric's mace and became the new Thunderstrike. As to why Eric was worthy of wielding Mjolnir, there is nothing specific mentioned. It doesn't say that he had a pure heart or extreme courage, but what stands out about Eric is his humility and the time when he pushed a construction worker out of the way of falling debris. One main standout of Eric is his humility. I think it could be fair to say that he is the most humble of Mjolnir's wielders, and that says a lot. He never sought Mjolnir's power, but when he realized it was necessary to use it, he did so to the best of his ability. He always sought to restore Thor, even though he thought it would mean the end of his superhero career. When he was offered a paradise that even the gods of Asgard crave, he refused it because he didn't consider himself worthy of that honor, which made him even more so. Whenever Eric is brought up, his heroic deed of pushing a man out of the way of falling debris is often brought up as well. Whenever it is brought up, it is always referred to as an act of a warrior born, which seems like a likely qualification of worthiness. Eric is not only known for his time as Thunderstrike, but also as Thor. One could draw several parallels between Eric's Thor and Jane Foster's Thor. Both were important in Thor's life, and both became Thor when he was out of commission. But there is one key difference. Eric never wanted to be Thor. Eric was always uncomfortable in his position as Thor, and he did everything he could to actively seek out and restore Thor. Jane seemed to care very little about Thor's unworthiness, to the point where she talked down to Thor when he confronted her. Jane loves being Thor. She adopted the Asgardian speech patterns despite not actually being from Asgard, and has no problem with being called the Goddess of Thunder. Eric always tried his best to do good, but never put himself on Thor's level. While Eric literally went through hell itself to restore Thor, Jane barely paid any notice when Thor went missing. Eric is Thor's friend. When he finally restored Thor, he gave up Mjolnir without a second thought.
Truly, the worthiness found in mortal heroes never ceases to surprise me.
Supervillains have huge egos. It's part of their charm. They always believe that they are stronger than the hero, and that victory is always within their grasp, despite how many times they lose. Such is the case in Secret Wars #1, where Magneto finds himself in the midst of Thor, Iron Man, the Hulk, She-Hulk, Wasp, Captain Marvel, Professor Xavier, Spider-Man, Captain America, Hawkeye, Storm, Nightcrawler, Cyclops, Wolverine, Colossus, Rogue, Mr. Fantastic, the Human Torch, the Thing, and Lockheed the Dragon. That's 20 superheroes. Now, being both a supervillain and a pretty powerful guy, Magneto declares himself to be better than all of them. This, word for word, is Magneto's declaration of superiority. I am Homo Superior. I stand above you all, save perhaps Thor. He alone among you may be my equal. Magneto, an all-powerful supervillain, not only says that he considers Thor to be the most powerful of those 20 superheroes, which include the Thing, the Hulk, and She-Hulk, but he also stopped his monologue to say that Thor may be better than him. The fact that a supervillain as powerful as Magneto wouldn't even dare to say that he was better than Thor is a huge feat. Well, that's all for this episode of Thor Talk. The next episode will continue Worthiness Month with the complete story of Unworthy Thor, in which we reveal what made Thor unworthy back in Original Sin. Once again, this episode was voted on Thor Talk's Instagram page. If you want to keep up with Thor Talk and even vote on topics for future episodes, follow Thor Talk on Instagram @ThorTalk. And once again, I'd like to formally state that all of the art and video is owned by its respective companies, and I own none of it. With that said, see you next time on Thor Talk, where...
You'll be holding